Okay.
All right, our new snazzy intro. That means it is Friday and it is time to live stream. How you doing over there, Angela?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm doing fine. Are you ready for tonight's topic?
Sure. But you
Okay.
have some announcements, right?
I do have some announcements to make before we get into it. And I guess we may as well get right to it. We've got a lot going on. In fact, I was telling you, Angela, I'm feeling a little bit stressed sometimes about all this just basically AA stuff that's going on. I think that I'm busier now with AA than I was when I was actually doing the service work and the face-to-face AA back in the day. But anyway, we got some good stuff going on. I put some links in the chat before we started, but the first thing coming up is Emotional Sobriety by the Free Thinkers Living Sober group. And I've got a little ticker going by there to let you know who's in that and everything. But that's going to be on Sunday, November the 29th at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So you'll have to do the math to figure out what times it is in your time zone, because there are so many time zones. I can't name them all.
Right.
But anyway, there you go. Emotional sobriety. That should be a good one. And people seem to enjoy that. And
Yeah,
then
I
what
really
else?
enjoyed the last one.
Yeah, it was good. And hopefully Mario will speak a little bit slower for us. I really like her. She's a great author, number
Right.
one, but she's a nice damn person. She
Yeah.
is so nice and down to earth, and is really looking forward to this. So that's really cool. I like her.
Very cool.
Yeah, she's a great member of our community here. And then what else do we have coming up? Virtual ICSA. Okay, so man, I can't believe this is already coming up. December 5th will be here before you know it. Joe and Greg did a lot of work on this, and we've got the program pretty much outlined now. I'll go ahead and go through that just a little bit here, so that you'll know what's going on. And we'll be posting this on the Secular AA website and on AA Beyond Belief and other places. And why can't I pull this thing up? Oh, it's over here. I have a lot of things open. I can't
Yes,
find
you
it.
do.
I told Angela before we started, I said, I got so many things open and it's really makes me nervous, but you know what? I'm going to take it nice and easy. Okay. All right. So here we go. There's actually going to be 2 rooms, and we're still needing to get the room number for the Oh My God room. But Mikey said he had to talk to his group, Conscience, to get whatever they had to do with that. Okay. So anyway, the first speaker is going to be Dr. George Koob, who is the director of NIAAA, which is the National Institute of Alcoholism and whatever. So he's going to be speaking, and he's a very well known famous doctor and expert on alcoholism. And so he's going to speak at noon, and then we're going to have at 12:30 we're going to have It Came from Tradition 5, Diversity and How Starting Secular Groups and Other Special Purpose Groups Widens AA's Gateways. And that will kick off like 2 5 to 10 minute speakers. And it's to be, we got more coming on that to develop on that. Then we're going to have 2 things going on at one time. We're going to have at 1 o'clock p.m. It Came from the Kitchen, Not an Outside Issue, Are Sexism and Gender Bias Keeping AA Stuck? And who I just mentioned, Mario Hornbacher, will be hosting that. And there will be, I believe, also Beth H. And I think that we're still looking for someone else to participate in that panel. But that's going to be at 1 o'clock in the Beyond Belief room. And then at the same time in the Oh My God room, Atheist in AA. Is it ever okay to leave AA is the question. And John C. From Paris will be hosting that, I believe. And then Vic from New York and then
Mhm.
John S. from Brighton, England. They're going to be talking about whether or not it's okay to leave AA. I would say it is. Anytime you want to go, you can go.
Right.
Anyway, that should be interesting. And then we've got at 2 o'clock, Dr. George Colmack from the Recovery Center, and I think I think it's the treatment center that Greg O, my friend, went to in Maryland, and it's actually it's one of the first treatment centers that incorporated 12-step facilitation or 12-step process in their treatment or something, I guess. Anyway, he can tell you more about that. Dr. George Colmack and Brian Gill, also from the Colmack Recovery Center. And then at the same time, we're going to have in the Oh My God room, it came from London, the God Word. We can never get enough of the God Word, can we? Cyril C. from London, from the London AA Freethinkers group, and the Stonehenge AA Freethinkers Steps group, Brendan. Anyway, those people from England are going to be over here talking about what they did with the God Word pamphlet.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Then at 3 o'clock, we have Kathy Mitchell, the vice president of the National Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome, will be here. So she's, pretty knowledgeable, of obviously an expert in that. And at the same time that she's talking from 3 to 4, we're going to have in the other room, it came from our past, what it was like. This should be really good. This is going to be a tough hour, but all these things are going to be recorded. So if you miss one that you really wanted to attend and you couldn't make up your mind, you can go back later and listen to the recording. So this one, it came from our past, is going to be hosted by Jackie B. And she is from the AA History Symposium in California. I think it's located in California. She's from San Francisco. And it's going to feature Chris F., the author of Drunks, The Story of Alcoholism and the Birth of Recovery, an excellent book, by the way. Bob K., author of Key Players in AA History, our good friend, and also a really great book on all the interesting people that made AA happen. And then William Schauberg, and I'm pronouncing his name correctly because I'm actually reading it. He is the author of that really big ass book.
The big ass book.
The big
AA
book.
history.
The creation of AA. So that'll be a really good panel. I mean, that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. Then at 4 o'clock p.m., I just got confirmed today that David S., my friend, is going to be the MC/comic that will open up our entertainment and after party at 4 o'clock p.m. And he'll be introducing It Came from Cleveland, Is Belief in a Higher Power Necessary in AA, which is a skit that is put on by the Hank Parkhurst Blackout Players. So that's
Wow.
how about that? It's all coming together. Can't believe it.
Cool.
Yep. And
I haven't seen an AA skit in a long time.
I know.
I'm like trying to think back. It's like some sort of, shindig or gathering or annual conference or some sort of thing where somebody would do a skit. And I think it was the last one I saw was a young people's thing. So
I saw one once, I think, if I remember correctly, at our area assembly. And then the area in Florida that covers the Jacksonville area, they put together a CD or DVD, whatever, of the history of AA in Florida. And it was a play. And our friend Glenn is actually in that.
nice.
And I have a copy of that CD or DVD or whatever it is. I gave a copy to our archives person. I thought it would be really cool if maybe our area could do something like that. But I mean, the production value that they put into that, I mean, they actually had a real stage, and they had someone who was familiar with directing stage people and actors, I guess you call them. Oh well. So anyway, so that it was there's a lot going on, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, people who aren't that familiar with AA should log in at least for that, because an AA skit is a rite of passage, I think. You have to experience it at least once.
Yeah. Some nice comments in there already. An atheist of peace was thinking about this show yesterday because it was Bill W.'s 125th birthday. I did not know that. How about that? Happy birthday, Bill W. 125 years old.
Wow.
Well, actually, he stopped aging some time ago.
It would have been had.
Yes, it's the 125th anniversary of his birth. So, man, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that pretty much covered it. I put links in there of all the different places. Like if you want to learn about the emotional sobriety, what's going on there, you can read about that. I got the link there, and I have a link to the other events too. I did forget to mention the book club. Some people in the AA Beyond Belief Facebook group started a book club, and in November they read Getting Sober Without, what is it called? Oh, Sober
Yeah.
Without God.
Yeah. Getting sober without God.
Yeah, yeah. Sobriety. I can't. Is that what it's called? Anyway, is that what it's called? Yeah,
Yeah.
Staying Sober Without God. Staying Sober Without God. Okay, so Staying Sober Without God by Jeffrey Munn. We're gonna be talking about that, and that's going to be on December 6th at 2:00 p.m. So I think that covers everything. Of course, Hallapalooza is coming up. I have a link for that out there too. That'll be December the 20th. We've got more people from Ireland and other places, South Dakota and Ohio and Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So today's topic is going to be taken from the book, The Alternative 12 Steps, A Secular Guide to Recovery. And I know, Angela, you use this book for yourself when you were going through the steps and when you work with others. And I've read from it at meetings and so forth. And I did enjoy this reading that I read today. And it was about a program for living, and which is basically setting us up for, what the steps are about. And Angela, I thought maybe what we could do is I can read through it, and then we can stop and comment on whatever it is that we've read that we want to comment about, and maybe have a discussion based upon that, and also encourage people in the chat room to comment on whatever we're reading from that book, and even calling in to our toll-free number to comment on the topic as well. So without further ado, do you think I should just jump into it and start reading? I can do that.
Sure.
And I'm going to, oh yeah, I got to do this. I've got
Another window.
I know. Okay, here we go. I got to go here, and I got to turn that off.
Well, when a door was closed, many windows were opened for you.
Yep. Now, how come you don't see that? There you go. Now, hopefully you see and you can read this thing.
Hopefully you can read.
Yes. All right. Anyway, so I'm going to read, and then we can stop. And Angela, please, when you have something that you want to comment on, just say, John, stop. I have something to say. And
Okay.
we can talk about it. You can just say it loud. Say it loud. Say, shut up, or whatever you want to say. All right. Okay, here we go. The title of this chapter, A Program for Living. What is the 12-Step Way? The title of this chapter says it all. The 12 steps are a program for living, a program of action fueled by spiritual energy. Basically, the steps suggest a system of holistic healing, a practical system of action that integrates mind, body, and spirit. When our mind, body, and spirit are integrated, we approach life with a new attitude that leads to balance and contentment. We believe the 12-step program suggests a practical philosophy for each of us, a philosophy of living. We also believe this program needs to be kept separate from any religious implications. In order to work the steps, what we think about God doesn't matter, but what we believe about our own whole selves does. Wow. Hey, Bob. Okay. So anyway, I kind of like that already. It's kind of setting this up, letting me, I agree with this totally, that, my experience with the steps is that it was a completely practical program. And I do like the fact that they mentioned in here that it's a holistic approach. And I think that they probably do give more, and you will know this, you're more familiar with the book. I think they probably give more attention to physical health and well-being than they did back in the 30s when they wrote the big book, I imagine.
Yeah, I think they do. I think the biggest thing I've said before about this is that it focuses a lot on, the emotional recovery, emotional sobriety, and such. And so I found that when people read this part, particularly if they're new or they have some issues with AA as a whole, that this is a helpful way for them to understand why we do the 12 steps rather than it just being part of our cultish ritual and such. It lays it out in a way that I think is more accessible and inviting.
Yeah, I think so too. Um, and what was I going to say? I was going to say something. I forgot I lost it. Anyway, it's okay. I'll come back. I'll move on. The 12 steps are a working framework. Oh, yeah, I love that. That's what somebody in our home group would say all the time. Julie would always say that she sees the steps as a framework for living. And I kind of see it that way, too. I'm so malleable. I see it however anyone wants to see it. The 12 steps are a working framework anyone can use to recover from personal turmoil and pain. There are no set concepts or dogma. How about that? Each person decides the program's meaning in a unique way. There are no leaders, no right way or wrong way, only our own way. We needn't compare our process or the way we work the program with anyone else's. Each person's interpretation is valid and life enhancing for that person, and we don't even have to understand how or why it works. That is really good advice. We just find that as we apply the steps, our lives begin to change, and the change is good.
Yeah, I like that part. I really wish that there are other people in the program that would read it and consider it, because I think that's another turnoff that people find when they actually go to meetings is oftentimes you do hear comparison, or depending on where you attend meetings, some places are very much you do it this way, or it's not AA, or you're not doing it wrong or not doing it right, or that kind of stuff. And so that's another reason why this book was really important to me. And my history with it was that I found it, I think, shortly after it was published, like it within the first several years. And gosh, it had to be like probably the second year, because I was still in high school, and I tried to use it for Overeaters Anonymous, and they would have none of that.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so I kept it. So I still have a copy of the original, but I'm really happy that Roger bought the rights to it so that he could republish it, because it's been really amazing to see so many people be able to access this, and then a lot of the people that I work with who have time in AA and who have gone through the steps previously are getting a lot out of this book too, because like I said, it goes a little bit more with kind of the emotional sobriety. And I think part of that is because it doesn't specify or specialize in alcoholism. It takes it from a couple of different points of view. So there's some Al-Anon wording in there, and other programs and stuff. So
yep.
Yeah.
Bob says that AA springs from the same New Thought roots as Mary Baker Eddy and her healthy mind, healthy body approach. How about that?
Yeah.
So they were actually into holistic stuff, or should have been anyway, if they were listening to Mary, I guess. Bob would know. We'll have to have Bob come on and explain all that to us sometime.
Right.
All right. So the 12-step program focuses on self-examination and a connection with spiritual energy. They do talk about spiritual stuff a lot in this book, and I just kind of equate that to emotional or, well-being.
Yeah, I usually, put in intentional or purposeful rather than spiritual, because usually it can, fit in there pretty well, and is a little bit more with how I think about things.
Yeah.
There's not anything wrong with spiritual. A lot of the people that I work with have an issue with that word. And so we try to find other ones that are a little bit more accessible to them. And I found intentional or purposeful is a good one for that.
I think it is. It sounds good there. The 12-step program focuses on self-examination and a connection with purposeful energy.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
really true. That's really true. You know, you do have to kind of dig down and reach in whatever is inside of you to actually have the energy to do these things, you know, the
Yeah.
courage to do these things. It also encourages us to go beyond theorizing about our condition and to use the steps as a specific, pragmatic, practical guide for recovery. It's not enough to think and reflect about our problems. As Bill W. said, the spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it. In other words, we must think about our situation and then physically, emotionally, and spiritually act on it. Yeah. Well, even the big book talks about, and you know, and I kind of grabbed on to this as a newly a new AA person. They used to I used to always hear that AA was a practical program of action, and I always hung on to that even before I came into my own as an atheist. I always kind of liked the idea of something being practical. I can relate to that, you know. I than more so than I can, you know, spiritual stuff and mystical stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I think it helps, you know, with the action part. I didn't think of it at the time, which was probably good because I generally don't like to think about things like self-discipline and
Oh yeah.
such. But really, I think that action, you know, that's part of it is that, you know, for a lot of these things, you do the work or, you know, whatever it is, the assignment or go to the meeting or whatever, and you do them and it becomes a part of your life practice, and that, you know, sometimes then different, you know, ideas or ways of thinking change because of that practice, and it's not necessarily something that would have come about by, you know, just thinking about it or doing, like they said, theorizing or even writing out, you know, a fourth step and things like that. You know, some of the stuff actually requires, you know, some additional action and
Hmm.
continued work at it, and then you see the changes. And yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the reason the program is useful to so many different kinds of people is that it pulls together basically contradictory ideas. In order to carry out the steps, we must make a personal individual choice to connect with spiritual resources greater than we are. We make a controlled, conscious choice to transcend the circumstances of our lives. At the same time, we seek help from a source of spiritual power outside of our own personal control and beyond our everyday consciousness. This contradictory nature of the 12 steps allows the program to serve anyone, no matter what their religious or philosophical belief system. Is the contradiction she's talking about the idea that it's both practical and spiritual?
Yeah, I think that that's part of it, and I think a little bit of it in there is the contradiction we face when, you know, we have to let go of some of our preconceived notions about different things or our idea of what control is
Mm,
in order to be open to other ideas and open to making changes in our lives. So
yeah,
I think that it's a combination of that.
yeah. And she says that it helps anyone, you know, no matter what your religious or philosophical belief system. So, yeah.
Yeah.
When you really look at the program in that way, I mean that's really the way I think that it was maybe intended. I don't know when people got to kind of narrow it down to where it had to be a specific one way of doing things. That's almost impossible. I remember as a newcomer, not newcomer, I was probably I was actually about for 4 years sober, I guess, when I was getting ready to do my fourth step, and I wanted to make sure I did it right by the book. And I went around to like several different of the more experienced people in the group, and I asked them how they did their fourth step. And I swear to God, I got a different answer from every person. And it
Right.
really just kind of caused me more confusion than anything else. So, you know, what I learned from that is I did it the best I could, the way, you know, reading the big book and everything. But what I got from that, it's not so much how I do it, it's the fact that I do make an effort to figure out what was going on with me and why I was reacting the way I was to these situations in my life. And, just the fact that I actually did that and applied myself with really a determination to really understand myself as best I could is what really did it for me. That, and then following up and talking with another person. So,
Yeah, definitely. The taking the action of it, because I think for a lot of us, the first go around of doing a fourth step, we do the best we can. And then as time goes by, we start remembering other things. And, if we, thought about it at 10 years, then we probably would, have another, if we had 40 things on our list, we probably have another 40 that had still happened before we got sober that we just forgot about.
yeah.
And so you do the best that you can, and usually it still works because of the, you're taking the action. It's the intention that you're trying to do. You're trying to be intentional or purposeful, as we've said, to change your life. And so I agree that I don't know that it necessarily matters how you do a fourth step, but just that you do one to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
So.
And I did put the phone number up here. So if you guys want to call in and comment about anything that we're reading and give us your thoughts on the subject, that would be great. That number is 844-899-8278. And just call anytime. You can interrupt us. It's no big deal. All right. How do we live? There's a typo here. How do we live the 12-step way? Harmful compulsive behaviors or addictions are any thoughts, feelings, actions that mask our emotional pain and that we are willing or unable to change.
We're unwilling.
What's that?
Unwilling.
Unwilling or unable to change. Okay. They are the marks of our unhealthy self, our self-destructiveness. For many of us, this kind of self-defeating behavior has been our way of coping with life's difficulties. The problem is that self-defeating behavior does just what it says. It defeats ourself. Life gets more and more out of control, harder and harder for us to manage. This is where the 12 steps can help. And that's kind of like, the framework they were talking about. I had kind of a strange experience today. Somebody, his name is Gavin, and I guess he's a reporter or a journalist. I guess that's the same thing over in Pennsylvania. And he's doing a story on people who drank alone. And I guess he heard me on a podcast talking about how I was a solitary drinker. I drank alone. But the fact of the matter is I drink in bars, but I consider myself being alone because when I went to the bars, I wasn't really interacting with anybody. I mean, I wasn't going there to party. I was a blackout drinker. I didn't, but he was asking me questions like, what did you do? Did you talk with anybody? Did you do anything? And it was just such a dark period and I couldn't quite make sense of it myself. I think that I did think about things in my life. But I wasn't, if I ever ran into somebody I knew at the bar, I would try to get away. And I just remember, the day after drinking and going into work or something and just being super paranoid that someone had seen me. And all of this happened on a level of my consciousness, I guess, that I was unaware of because I denied that I was an alcoholic, even to myself. And yet I was hiding it as best I could. And I can't make sense of that. And anyway, just talking to him like for as long as I was today and he was asking me these questions and he was in the program too. So I know he knows where I'm coming from, but the whole thing, it was just so insane. I couldn't make any sense of it, but
yeah. And so reading that passage reminded you of that, the
It
self-defeating behavior.
did. It was definitely self-defeating behavior. One of the things that I talked to him about is when my drinking really got bad was after my mother's death, and she died from a suicide. And and he told me that that was my way of dealing with it, probably. And it was. I was medicating myself, but I didn't know that consciously, but I think I was,
Right.
But yeah, I wasn't able to deal with it. I didn't have the ability to destigmatize the suicide and ask for help.
Hmm.
I didn't have that within me to do that. And so it was totally self-defeating behavior. When I got sober and got into AA, it was like night and day. So I went from this life where I was a blackout drinker in bars, really surrounded by people, but really alone, to going to AA meetings where I'm surrounded by people, but part of the crowd, having actual friends to do things with. And that contrast, it was just, it changed my life. And it gave me the ability to trust these people so I could go through the program. And the steps for me, even when I did it the old big book way and doing all that stuff, it really did help give me some manageability to my life. It empowered me to go do the things that I needed to do to have a decent life, you know?
Hmm.
So, yeah. Anyway, I just thought about that. It was kind of, and what was really funny as I was talking to him, my wife heard everything I was saying. And she said that she always learns something new about me that she didn't know. And it always it makes her sad that I actually lived that way. But I said, that was a long time ago. If it still is.
Aw.
Yeah. All right. We can't eliminate problems from our past, present, or future, but the steps can help us deal with what has been, what is now, and what is to come. When we live as they suggest, we can stop letting pain and problems control us. We can learn to say no to what hurts us and yes to ideas, feelings, and actions that help us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe says, what a
I mean,
learning. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. I was going to say, well, technically we can, control those things. But most of the ways we do that might be illegal. So this is probably a better idea than what I was thinking when I read that. So yeah, definitely.
And yeah, Joe, you're right. It was a learning experience to do things sober when we were new. Yeah. Different deal. We can't eliminate problems from our past. Did I read that?
Yep.
Okay. We work the steps with both our, I thought this was really kind of interesting. I had to think about this a little bit as I read this. We work the steps with both our conscious and unconscious minds. We use our conscious minds when we read and study for greater understanding of our problems. We call a friend from the program when we are in trouble. We consciously examine a step and think about how to apply it in our lives. With commitment and deliberation, we practice our new ways until they are part of us. We use our unconscious minds too. We use them when we meditate, when we are absorbed in creative thought or work, when we dream. New ideas and feelings come to us. Different solutions to our problems appear in our minds. We think about the steps and our unconscious responds. Our conscious and unconscious energies flow back and forth, feeding on each other, stimulating each other, producing change and growth. Slowly, they lead us to health and serenity.
Yeah, these guys were ahead of their time talking about multiple minds.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's great. One of the things when people ask me about step 3, because at meeting level, often that gets brought up as somebody's having a problem. And so then they say, well, just do the 3rd step prayer, or, how do you turn it over or something like that. And so when people have needed something very specific in the past, I'd say that I turn it over if I have to a different part of my mind. And then I carry on with what I need to do to go through the day and let, a different part of my mind work on it. And that, oftentimes something will come up that will be useful. And sometimes what that is, I've been to so many meetings that sometimes somebody said in a meeting that I may not have even been listening to at the time, will pop into my head, and I'll remember so-and-so saying something along the lines of whatever the difficulty is that I'm having, how they handled it. And it's something that, that I hadn't considered and that might work in my situation. And so, I don't know that I think that there's, some sort of higher thing, directing that. But I think that that's part of how the unconscious mind helps out and stores some of this information that we're able to access later.
By the way, I just changed the audio settings. I hope that our audio was even. Let us know in the chat room if it was, but hopefully it'll be evening out better bit now. And Angela, what I was thinking about when I was reading that is I've always kind of thought about the steps twofold: practical things that I do and experiences that I have. And I think for me, the unconscious part are the experiences, the things that I really couldn't attribute to any action on my part,
Mm.
but were just probably an unconscious, re, I don't know, an unconscious reaction maybe to what I was doing or something. I don't know, but I don't know. That's how I was seeing it, because I always see the program that way. I see it as two parts. There's a deliberate part where I have to read and study and do and think, but then there's a part that's just experiential too.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's what I was thinking. I find the steps really interesting in that way, and I think that's why they're so unique to the individual, because in my view, there is a lot of we bring a lot of ourselves to it and our own experiences to the process, and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And this is what I like about this book as well. We read a little bit earlier where they talk about the self, that generally it's not degraded in here. I hear
yes,
in the rooms that, well, you're stuck in self, and getting into self is what, a lot of my work has been, is to understand, what that is, and to come to a centered self. I think some people would say, their spirit or whatever, but for me, it's like a capital S self, that I think is, the central guiding um, principle in my life that helps me to be, the better version of myself, and that, it's an important thing that they talk about in here of coming to self, and not something that I need to be rid of.
right.
Ego is another thing.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, something a little bit different, and so I can, work with that a bit more. But the self is something that I have high regard for. So,
Oh, we have a caller. Let's see who this is. And my cat wants out of the room. Hello.
Hey, John, Bob K here.
Oh, hey, Bob. How are you?
I got the flu.
Oh, shoot. Sorry to hear
I've
that.
been better. I've had better Friday nights,
Oh,
but I'm enjoying your podcast. I just want to weigh in with a couple of things.
please do.
Just tell you a little quick history story. In 1906, there was a church called the Emmanuel Church, and they opened up a clinic it was a lot of tuberculosis then. So they opened this clinic, poor part of town, people coming in, getting free medical care. And both of the ministers at the church had psychology degrees, and they found all these people had emotional problems, and they were able to help them. They had a lot of alcoholics coming to the clinic too, but they had neurotics, and the general category they called neurasthenia, which is emotional problems of the neurotic type of level. And all of those things are amenable to a change of attitude. They taught people relaxation. 12 Steps has meditation.
mhm.
William White said if, he lined up the stuff they were doing, and you could put modern names on just about every one of them, therapeutic applications of 2020, positive self-talk. If I'm depressed or whatever, and I can learn something about doing more positive self-talk, I may end up feeling better in a couple of months. And so things that are maybe partly a physical disorder are somewhat amenable to change. And the two ministers, they had the exact attitude of every single case was somewhat different. So they didn't have the one size fits all, other than in a general way. And Fred would need more of ABC, and Janet would need less B and more D. And they helped a lot of people. And that all kind of came crumbling down when the main minister retired, and they just closed up the operation. By that time, AA was going, but they had 30 years of helping alcoholics, and that's where Richard Peabody and the lay therapy movement sprung from those people. And what William White would call wounded healers. Most of the counselors around North America today have addiction backgrounds of their own. And, we found over the years we're the best at helping each other. We listen to each other. We'll talk to each other, where we don't do so well with ministers and physicians and stuff. But the 12 steps, when I arrived, I was sick, and I have to do something. I don't think the 12 steps are, the specifics are that critical. Come shoot me, Mr. Fundamentalist. And, oh, by the way, I was listening to Angela talking about, shifting problems to her other side of her mind so that side would deal with it. She might need psychiatric help. Anyway, that's all I got tonight.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Yeah, I remember reading about that Emmanuel Church, and Joe's right. It was in Boston, and I can't remember. I guess that was anyway. Yeah, interesting. I have to look it up again. I read history and I enjoy it, and then I forget it. Oh, well. At least I do on a Friday night after Thanksgiving or whatever. I'm like, oh, whatever. Okay. No, thank you, Bob. I do appreciate the comments. I really do. Okay. So, all right. So now are we doing the harmful compulsive behaviors now? How do we live? Oh, yeah, I've already read that one, didn't I? Where are we? Oh, our unconscious mind. I read that.
Yeah. So you're at, we carry out the actions.
Yes. When we carry out the actions suggested by the 12 steps, we examine every part of ourselves and our lives, our past, present, and hopes for the future. We assess our true character and nature. We look at the experiences we've had and how we've reacted to them. We look at how we've played out our roles, and we examine our creativity. Working the steps means that we examine each part of ourselves and we look at the whole picture too. In a way, each of us is like a kaleidoscope made up of many varied pieces, physical pieces, mental pieces, emotional pieces. All these pieces are in almost constant movement, resting only for a moment to form the unique picture that is us at that single instant in time. Then it changes to a new arrangement as life is lived and the scope is turned. Okay, I need to let my cat out. Can you give me just 1 second? It's driving me crazy.
Yes.
There's nothing worse than a cat that wants on the other side of the door.
Right.
Okay, she's out.
All right, great. Yeah. So yeah, what I like about that is, talking about the different senses of self again. Yeah, it sounds like these guys probably needed psychiatric help as well. So we're all on the same team here. But yeah, because it's true. I mean, we're all coming kind of from a different perspective at a different time during the day. I mean, we all have those mood swings and shifts. Yeah. And I really like the kaleidoscope kind of example of that they give, that you take a move it slightly and we're a different person in that moment than we may have been the moment before.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you, the older that I get too, as I look back in time, and now I've got decades to look back on, I swear to God, it's like, I know that was me. It was me, but I'm not that person now. And, that doesn't necessarily have to do with this, I suppose. But we do evolve. And I think even I know for sure in the last since 2014, since I've started taking a look at this program from a secular perspective, I've really evolved and changed in my views quite a bit. I don't know if that really has anything to do with what they're talking about here. I think they're talking more about when we the complexity of human beings, and how we can be more than one thing at a time, maybe.
Yeah, they're talking about the examining that, that
Yeah.
we have all of these different, pieces of us, and different ideas, different memories that we have, different, facets to our personality. And that, part of the process is looking at all of that and how it makes up, the whole of who we are. And then by examining that, we can improve upon the stuff that we don't like so much about ourselves, or that we find that is less helpful in whatever way.
Joe said, "What step is that?" I think this is kind of like the inventory steps. Is
I
what
think that
probably
I think they're mainly just kind of talking about the steps in general,
in
like
general.
yeah, like living the process.
Yeah,
So
because it
this
really
is
is a
kind of
process of getting to know yourself, of understanding yourself.
right. Yeah. So in different parts of the steps, you get different, glimpses, I guess, of, who you are and who you want to be, and such.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I like this section. What can the program do for us? The results of living the 12-step way are wonderful. Here are some of the things that can happen for anyone who commits to the program and works at following it. We learn to live right here, right now. The steps teach us not to spend our time living in the past or imagining the future. What was, was. What will be, will be. Our only chance for changing, growing, and living well is the present instant. Right now is the only moment we have to act on our lives, the only moment we have. Living in the here and now produces self empowerment. Wow. Which means we learn to change today, not to put it off. And we learn to take whatever we can from the present moment that will strengthen us. When you read something like that about gaining some empowerment, some strength, that is really welcome to read. I got the sense for that when I look at the steps, even from my interpretation as I was a young person going through them, through the big book. I always did see the admission that I was powerless over alcohol as empowering in a way, because I could, from that, actually do something about the problem. And as I was talking to this guy today, this reporter, the thing that was so insane, and I know I'm not unique, was that I tried over and over, over and over. I told myself I was just going to have a few drinks,
Right.
over and over. I told myself that, and it never worked. I had 3 freaking DWIs, each one a year and apart. And every time I got one, but when I started drinking, I did not deliberately go out to get drunk. I was just going to have a few. It's just crazy. I can't
Right.
understand it to this day. I can't make sense of it. That I couldn't put 2 to 2 together is like, it was just insane. It's insane. I can't explain it, but I'm glad that I lived. I'm glad that I'm alive and made it through, because I don't think I would have made it if I would have continued drinking. I could never learn to drink at home and not get in the car. God.
Well, I've heard for some people that just drinking at home daily hasn't been that effective for them either. So there you go.
No, you're right. You're right.
Although it
It's on
has
hell.
prevented them from getting DUIs.
Yes.
Although sometimes the cops were involved anyway. So,
True.
yeah.
True. It's a hell no
Seems
matter which
that,
way you look at it.
for some
Yeah,
of
it's
us,
awful.
alcohol is just, not the way to go.
I
So,
would not wish it on anybody. I would not.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
living in the here and now is empowering, because, if I don't focus on what hasn't even happened yet, I can take care of what's going on right now. And that always
Yeah.
did help me.
Well, and I think when we get here to AA, usually, at least for me with my drinking, there was a lot of ruminating on, the terrible things or the things I hadn't accomplished yet, or, that. So there's, the depression of, dwelling on the past, and then the anxiety of, not knowing how I was going to, make it, how I was going to have a life. And what were people going to say now that I wasn't drinking, and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's I think helpful, particularly getting started in the program, to have that being in the moment type of a thing. And and it does help later as well. That's kind of a mantra for I think Buddhists and stuff. But I found that I've had to work with it a little bit, because in relationships, when you're trying to do retirement planning and stuff, which apparently is something people do, you have to be able to think in the future, and so that's been a struggle for me, because I'm one day at a time. I can't think that far in advance. That's terrifying. But yeah, as you continue on, that becomes something that you got to balance out the being in the moment and the doing what you need to do to be a better person, which planning out retirement is part of being a better person.
Yeah. Perhaps we glance up to see the sun shining through new spring leaves against a pale blue sky, or look up from the evening TV and notice a full
moon
shining in through the window. We experience a moment of wonder and happiness at the beauty. This moment, this remembered image, and the feeling that goes with it, can be stored in our memory bank to be retrieved and give us a feeling of peace when we're anxious or fearful.
Yeah. And isn't that quaint? The evening TV. Do you remember when there was just evening TV stuff that you could only watch in the evening on a certain day?
Oh yeah. I remember actually too. This at the end of after the late night show, the late night movie would end at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, or it seemed like it was really late, and then the TV would go off. There was nothing on, and you just saw that little diagram thing.
Wow.
Yeah. Nothing was on. They had nothing to put on. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. What are you talking about? No one's gonna watch TV.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I was watching Bake Off with my mom, the British baking show, and Netflix has it on. I guess the BBC airs it on Tuesdays, and then usually gives it to Netflix to have on Thursday. And I think last week we had caught up with this season, and she was pretty upset that she had to wait a week for the new one, and I laughed at her. I'm like, I don't know how you got through my childhood. I mean, I do remember having to wait. Thursday night was a big TV night. I think it was around here was Family Ties, and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of a digression, but it made me laugh. The evening TV, instead of
at least they're
TiVo.
not referring to the Big Book does, or the 12 and 12 moving pictures.
Right.
We learn to detach from others and let them run their own lives. This is kind of the Al-Anon stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
The 12 steps teach us a lot about detachment. When we detach from someone, we separate from them emotionally. I have to admit that I've learned to do this. We separate with compassion and without anger. It's really just a matter of respect. And they use this word a lot, and I like that. Respect for others and yourself. We learn to respect other people enough to detach from trying to manage their lives. We respect them, or to control their feelings. We learn to let others do what they do, think what they think, feel what they feel. We don't interfere by trying to change them, fix up whatever mess they get into, or make them feel better or worse. I love that idea of respect, by letting these people be and not trying to control them or arrange their lives or whatever we need to do.
Yeah. And it's interesting when they don't understand that that's what you're doing. But yeah, I love that part.
WC Daniels says that my 11-year-old gets frustrated when we watch old-fashioned TV where we have to watch the commercials and not jump ahead.
Yeah, it's tough. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we don't have to do that very often.
Mm-mm.
Like I said, I TiVoed the National Dog Show, and so that I could watch it without having to watch commercials.
I'm starting to watch YouTube more and more. And today I ran across something that was so great. It was Elvis Costello, and he had some kind of a show. I think it was called Spectator. And anyway, on this one program, he had Roseanne Cash, Chris Christopherson, um, and who else? I can't remember. Anyway, these really amazing songwriters and singers, and they were talking about their songwriting and performing. And it was amazing. Just yeah, but yeah, YouTube is great. I digress. Okay, so about the detachment, when our adolescent daughter gets into trouble at school, we express our interest, give her our support, and let her repair the situation and take whatever consequences come. Detachment may sound cruel, but really it is respectful because it assumes she is strong enough and smart enough
To handle.
to handle her own affairs. We respect her enough to support her and at the same time stay out of her way to let her work out her own problems in her own way. We respect her enough to believe in her.
Yeah, that's something that my partner really did well. It was difficult for me because when things would come up in school, I wanted to get involved and say what I thought, and let the administrators or whoever know what I thought about whatever the situation was. And he said, no, we should sit back and let her figure out how to handle the situation and what she's going to do. And we did. And she made, good choices and has continued to do so. Both girls are very much empowered. If they need us for advice or,
Oops, sorry.
consultation, then yeah. But otherwise, they work on stuff even with their teachers themselves.
I apologize, Angela. Did you hear the music?
No.
You didn't hear that? Okay. I was while you were talking, I was in YouTube looking for the link so I could send it to Joe about the show that I watched today. There you go. Yeah. And the child within us. We each carry a child within us, the remnant of the little boy or little girl we once were. Those of us who are compulsive or addictive live with a frightened, angry little person deep in our unconscious mind. This child carries the pain that blocks our road to serenity. The 12 steps teach us to find, to know, and to heal our inner child. We learn that we have created our present world out of our child's past. Today is not the past, and we no longer have to live by its rules. Today, as adults, we can speak to our inner child. We can choose which of our child's feelings, thoughts, and beliefs are relevant and useful in our present life and which we can put away.
Yeah, when this book was written, I believe that was, what was it? John Bradshaw, I believe. And so the inner child was a big deal at that time. So all the self-help stuff was about families and inner child and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it is kind of true too. Actually, when I was getting ready to do the 4th step, and this was probably about a year before I actually did it. And I sat down with this woman. She had been in AA for many, many, many decades or whatever. She's just a real old timer, and she was so good for me. She showed me how to dissect the resentment, to go through the resentment. And we just took a memory from my childhood and we went through it through the process of the big book. And I remember being so amazed by just doing that I could actually see myself back at that time and understand in this particular instance how I was impatient, and I was afraid and insecure. And it was like, wow. But it took me a whole year after that to actually finally go through and do that. But she was really helpful for me to show me that. And it was kind of like that child within us type thing, but I didn't really view it in that way at the time. But
Yeah.
We find a new view of reality. Probably one of the most important benefits of the 12-step program gives us a clearer view of reality. This doesn't mean we get the benefits without lots of effort on our part. We live the 12-step way. We break out of the web of denial, rationalizations, justifications, lies, pretenses, and posturings that has created our present world. Our reality is different when our view of life becomes less clouded and our concept of self becomes stronger. When we see more clearly and feel more confident, our life changes and we experience reality that feels brighter and more honest. We can say, the reason I didn't get that supervisor's job is that I'm often late and sometimes take more than an hour for lunch. It's not because Judy buttered up the boss or he fell for it. I really wanted that job and I'm going to have to change some things so I can get the next promotion. No excuses, no rationalizations, no justifications or pretenses. Instead, a clear honesty and forthright purpose.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Definitely.
I definitely got that from the program. I mean, it was part of my what confuses me sometimes is because I've been doing this for so many years. Am I doing this just because I have grown up and matured, or did I actually learn this from the program? I have a feeling that the program really, really helped me kind of get myself together a little bit earlier because I was kind of lost, and because I went from being that person who was just trying to cover up problems and not think about problems to somebody who would actually face reality,
Right.
and what a huge
Yeah.
difference that is. And I've been doing that ever since, trying to anyway.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. I think a lot of it is you're having experience with the steps and with a program of recovery, which is what, we were talking about tonight, the 12-step way. And, some of it is aging, but I do know some people your age that don't
True.
live
Oh
in
my God.
reality
Oh my
or
God,
process
you're right.
reality or are
Oh
still,
man.
doing things like that, blaming others for
Oh,
difficulties in their lives or difficulties they've created for themselves. And so, yeah, so I'd say that to give yourself credit for the work that you've done, because, yeah, there are plenty of people your
thank
age
you. You're
that
right.
aren't as willing to take a look at
Oh
themselves.
my gosh,
So,
you are so right about that. Thank you, Angela, for pointing that out because there
mhm.
are some real assholes out there. Oh man. So we've come up on an hour. I don't know if we want to
Yeah,
go through the rest of it now, but this was really an interesting exercise I found.
yeah.
It's I did something like this solo the other night for patrons and members of our YouTube channel. I read
Mhm,
tradition 1 from the 12 of 12, and then
mhm.
I opined on it. So for those of you who are patrons or members of the YouTube channel, you get to experience that video and no one else does. Anyway, that was kind of fun. I appreciate that. Thank you, Angela, for doing this with us.
Yeah.
It was fun, and thank you everybody for watching and participating, and thank you, Bob, for calling and for all your comments. It's just been great. I guess I'll see you guys at the emotional sobriety deal coming up this weekend. And until then, let me go ahead and play some decent music to get us out of here.
At the
I want
appropriate
to do,
time.
yeah. Oops, that's not right. There we go. And that's it. That's another episode of AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back again next Friday for another live stream. And I did forget to announce that our Euro stream is going to have to be pushed back a week because of the ICSA thing. But all of that will be posted out there on the internet for you all to read. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.